Finding that? No. Pretty solid.
No, I just called the phone number instead.
Oh.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Morning.
Thanks for taking the time to join the discussion today. Looking forward to talking a little bit about Beckley Road. Probably give a couple more minutes just for folks to get started, or just for some more folks to jump in, and then we'll get started in a couple minutes here to.
There ain't no video, is there?
Nolan's gonna come here and drop something off, but I'm gonna try to do this without shutting my door.
Well, afternoon, everybody. I think we can. We got a handful of folks on the Zoom so far, so I think we can kind of just get started to start our discussion today. I want to welcome you all. I really appreciate you all taking the time to join us and talk about Beckley Road and the planning process for that. I am Eric Kehoe. I'm a senior planner with Progressive AE. We're an urban planning and design consultant based in Grand Rapids. And I am joined today by James Kilborn, who is also a planner on our team. So we're here just to talk to you all a little bit, but mostly hear from everybody. We want to hear as much as we can and gather as much feedback as we can today as we're talking about Beckley Road and kind of the potential and the I guess the future of the area over there. So we were brought in by the city last fall to start to ramp up this project, and it's going to be going on throughout the year. So this is really just the start of our community engagement and public outreach, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for everybody across the city and those who frequently use the corridor to provide feedback on what they want to see, what's working, what's not working, and how things should progress. What are the issues that are, folks are struggling with in the area or in the city, and how we might be able to guide changes in the corridor to address some of those. So what I'd like to do is just give a quick little synopsis of what we've been working on so far, kind of where things are coming from, and then open it up to everybody just to have kind of an open discussion and gather feedback from you all. I know there's 13 of us on the call, so I think we are small enough where we can have a pretty good just kind of informal chat about the corridor once we get up and running here. So for those of you not familiar with the area or just kind of a little unsure about where it is, this is really the part of the city that we're focusing on in this study. So generally, we start at M66 in Beckley and head west from there. So obviously the mall site is a part of it, but also, you know, the Target, the creek and the trail, the housing and some of the apartments that are down here in the southern portion of it. And Capitol Avenue is also part of this study. So anything south of 94 that you see in this picture, south of 94 and west of 66 would be really part of what we're looking at here as the redevelopment plan. As I mentioned, so far we started getting ramped up in the fall, and obviously the holidays slowed things down a little bit. But to date, there's been a 15-member steering committee that's been established with city help, that folks who are you know, prominent figures in the community and who have a stake or a commitment to the changes that happen along the corridor. We've also sent out a online survey that the city was very helpful to promote, and that's received over 1,000 responses, and that really has been focused on a discussion of housing and kind of the business market over there. So thinking about what types of housing could potentially be seen in that area, or what types of new businesses could be seen, that sort of thing. And we had a really strong response from that so far. And we've also been looking at a lot of really data collection and analysis of the existing conditions. So what are we working with right now over there, and really get an understanding of what some of the challenges might be. So we've looked at some of the flooding concerns. Obviously, the surface parking that is over there is going to be a concern. Some of the traffic and crash data we've looked at, and we're analyzing kind of the current way that we're using the land over there, and looking at potential ways to move forward or address some of the concerns. And as I mentioned, we do have a lot of future engagement that's going to be planned. So there's going to be 3 more of these events on Zoom, just to kind of go over. It's really just a touch base as the planning process goes along. So we'll be meeting with folks and having discussions about some of the updates that have been taking place as we go through the process. But there's also going to be some in-person community engagement events. So in a couple different formats. So we're actually going to be along the corridor having pop-up events at some of the businesses, and just being where folks are when they come and visit the buildings and the businesses along the corridor, and getting their feedback. In addition to that, we'll be doing kind of public open houses where we dive into some more engagement exercises, I guess you call them. So we can kind of take some of the existing data and also gather data. I guess we call it data, but it's really just the feedback from community members on what they want to see, what's working, what isn't working. And part of these public events are going to be kind of tweaking ideas and tweaking things that we might be able to try to bring along the corridor as far as changes. So that kind of ties in with the scenario planning, which is kind of a really fun, it's a fun exercise, but it really, all it is just trying out different visions. So we think about what the future of the area might look like, and then we try to design it a little bit, do a rough design and rough model of it, and figure out if that's the scenario in the future that we're trying to aspire to. So like I said, lots more to come. We're really kind of starting to get ramped up with the public portion and getting everybody involved in this. So these are some, I think a lot of you are probably familiar with the Beckley Road corridor and what it looks like today, what type of activities are going on today. Obviously, there's challenges with some of the traffic and some of the other concerns that you all might have over there. What I'm showing on this page, these are really just, we call them benchmarks, but they're really just ways to get our brains thinking about what could be, you know. So when we're thinking about the current conditions and what we're working with right now, sometimes it's really hard to think about how it could change, you know, and think about what the future vision could be for the corridor. So these are kind of just some images from other places around the country that are doing interesting things and changing some of the models for how the land is used in areas kind of like Beckley Road or similar to Beckley Road. So, you know, in the top left here, there's a public skating rink. Up here, there's like on the top right, it took some of the parking and created a little food truck oasis, you could call it, with some picnic tables and some shade trees and that sort of thing. And then down on the left here is actually a huge park that also serves as a flood mitigator. So a lot of places across the country are using parks to help address some flooding concerns. So this is just another example of like this used to be a developed building, and the city transitioned it into a parkland. And then just some other like amenities on the bottom right here for shade or just some public plaza type things. So really nothing set in stone. Like I said, since we're just kind of getting going, these are really just ways to kind of jog everybody's brains about like, okay, what could we do down there? What could we see happen differently? So that's really it for me. When we do some of these discussions with community members, we try to talk as little as possible and listen as much as possible. You know, because what we're going to be working on is basically taking the concerns and the ideas that the public has and trying to put that down on the paper so we can get a plan set for the next couple of years, next couple of decades even of redevelopment in that area. So I think now I would love to just kind of open it up to you all that are on the call. You know, when you're thinking about the corridor, to me, the simplest way, the easiest way to get into that conversation is talking to us and telling us about the strengths and weaknesses, as well as what you think about when you think of opportunities that could happen along there or potential threats to the health and well-being of the corridor and how it kind of ties into the whole city. So with that, I would love to open it up and hear what you all are thinking about the corridor's strengths and weaknesses and have a conversation.
So I'll go ahead and go first, guys. Jim Marino here. I guess my stressor here would be how much of this is going to be in competition with the downtown. I mean, the city has invested a huge amount of money, along with private investing and whatnot, to try and revitalize the downtown. Have they looked at this thing from the perspective of how much more they're draining away from that central core out to the southwest corridor?
Right. Hey, Jim, I guess tell me a little bit about your connection to the area or your background and you know, do you work over here or city resident?
So I've lived in the city for over 45 years.
Okay.
And I'm on the southeast corner of the city. And we're not too far from the downtown corridor and part of the neighborhood planning council in our area. And as I said, it's been a challenge. Ever since the southwest part of the city started developing, the downtown corridor has been basically, you know, trying to keep what it can in the downtown, but it seems we keep bleeding it out to the southwest corridor.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in your time, over 45 years, have you seen quite a bit of, you feel like you've seen quite a bit of change? I mean, 45 years
yes.
ago, that was kind of when the mall was just kind of getting going, I guess, that area.
Yes, yes. The inception of the mall, all the development on the Southwest Corridor, the concept where the hospital wanted to shift from the inner city to the Southwest Corridor, all that activity. I mean, it's disconcerting how much of a shift is being drawn from the inner city to the outer portion of the city.
Yeah.
Hey Jim, if I could chime in, are there land uses that you see as being unique to downtown versus like Beckley Road that could be good in the future that so that they aren't competing?
That's interesting. As far as the land uses, I guess it comes down to more a case of the city having a real true heart to heart with itself as to what it is they want to be when they finally, grow up, if you will. Because there's a lot that can work for both sides, but it's, as you gentlemen know, you're part of planning and, that looking at the bigger picture. So at the end, it all makes sense, and works for everybody in concern. So I don't know if that part has, really been addressed in the surveys, but I think for me, that's one of the concerns I would have as a resident is what do we want to be when we finally grow up here? Because we seem to be competing at the moment, and the competition could be better used and if it was more focused into more intentional planning than just, this is a great thought. That's a great thought. Let's have some intentional think here.
So, Jim, just to kind of summarize or kind of, I guess, just make sure I hear what you're saying. Like, you feel like there's probably, when I think about these four categories, it does feel a little bit like it's a threat between, not deciding, or I guess the threat might be just like worrying that investment and stuff is getting pulled away from downtown core toward the outskirts of this area. It's like kind of, and it's a little bit of like, okay, which side do we want to push forward? Does that seem to be what you're thinking about?
That's very accurate, Eric.
Okay. Do other folks have, kind of going off of Jim's point, do other folks have things that come to mind when they hear that?
So may I speak? My name's Diane Kraus.
Yeah, hi Diane.
Hi. So I've been a lifelong resident. I'm 54 years old. I grew up on the east side of Battle Creek, more like Emmett Township, and now I live on the southwest corner. So Beckley Road, Capitol Southwest, and that whole area is 3 miles from it. And I'm also, 6 miles to downtown Battle Creek. So I hit both. What I love about the downtown Battle Creek is, yes, sometimes it's had its struggles, but it has the resilience and it's coming back. And I'm excited to see what they've already got in play for development down there, some more green space and some additional businesses that are locally owned. What the Beckley corridor is always been designed to do is to have that stop off the highway for those traveling through. And the city or the people here in Battle Creek seem to favor chain restaurants versus local. I wish there was more of a popular category to support local, but we have a great resource. We have a lot of people that do support local, but anyway, the word's out, Olive Garden is coming to the mall site. And that seems to be some pretty positive, for a lot around here. Because for 25 years that Olive Garden has said we weren't big enough of a draw for that. Well, so that brings in additional things, but also what I would like to see, I work off Southwest Capitol in the area by Red Lobster. So the intersection there of Southwest Capitol and Beckley is is super busy. In fact, the left turn lanes get backed up to where some people can't even get on the highway. If and they did in that bridge was just recently redone. It's beautiful, it's great. But then also the continuity between like the mall area, which Horrocks is now there, so it's busier, and getting across the street to Target and the Hobby Lobby area, there's not continuity for that. So you've shown a picture of kind of like how maybe there could be like maybe kind of like a bridge or something like that, something that can make that more of a complex area. And adding in like the food truck idea, that's fantastic. And even green space, there is a walking trail that does walk in, that you can walk from some of the apartments from Southwest Capitol to the Beckley area, but then it's parking lots on both sides, really. So I'd like it to where I could feel like I could walk from my office and maybe to walk to Horrocks in a more safer, in a safer way than just kind of walking down Southwest Capitol, down Beckley on the busiest areas. And yes, I know there's areas to walk, but it feels too busy if there was that. And I think maybe a lot more people would maybe say walk from Horrocks and maybe across the street to Target if there was a better flow to do so. Kind of making it more flow better. That's what I'd like to see. So then maybe other businesses like in the Target complex might, be there, move into that or more into that. So that's what I'd like to see.
Diane, when you think about like the existing businesses that are there,
Yes.
you mentioned like getting more in there, like what words come to mind to describe the current feel?
I feel like, I'm a Target shopper. I go to Horrocks, all the time because that's where I go get my lunch a lot. So if there was more, even something like a Horrocks, I know Trader Joe's, but Horrocks is a pretty good replacement for not having a Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
But something along the line of that. I know that there's a lot of people that says, well, we'll miss clothing stores. Well, it's not the fault of our town per se, it's the fault of online shopping, why those types of stores have gone away. But I also feel like we compete with Kalamazoo. So if there's a store in Kalamazoo, they won't put one in Battle Creek. So if there was something that Kalamazoo didn't have but Battle Creek could get, then that might help that scenario. Maybe a mini outlet mall. That seems to be the trend where everybody, where you can just drive up, and if you want to just go into say Lululemon, then you can, and you can leave versus having to be, walk the whole mall. Walk the whole indoor mall doesn't seem to be the trend anymore.
Right.
Things like that, trendier, like for 25 and under, or even 35, those are trendy stores. Or even pop-up and I know that Lululemon, they do pop-up shops, routinely. So kind of more innovative on kind of what the larger cities already have happening, and see if that can, and I think our Beckley corridor is the busiest in Battle Creek. The other one's probably Columbia Avenue. But I feel like there's a disconnect. People still want to be able to go into a store and feel like they can shop for something instead of waiting even the next day for Amazon, let's say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So when you're, couple things, it's interesting that you work in the area too. Like, do you feel that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it like kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, in terms of like, okay, if I drive to these spaces for lunch, it's probably a pretty frustrating drive, right? Or is it not too bad?
It's busy no matter if I leave at 8:30 in the morning or at 4:30. It's a busy corridor.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that the light there at Riverside and Beckley is a very dangerous light. There's people that run it that, I can't believe there's not more accidents, but I've seen plenty of accidents. I mean, I've lived on this side of town for 25 years.
Right.
So, and only worked on this side of town for 3. So, so daily I'm driving it more than just like getting out of work and heading that way home from when I used to work downtown Battle Creek, let's say, you know, and things like that. But, um, I guess what I'm looking to say is like, yes, Horrocks does a great job for that fresh food, having fresh food ready. And then I'd like to see more options of even like if a locally, you know, we've got one locally owned pizza place along the whole corridor. And, you
Right.
know, and there's only one other one that's a chain, you know, that's a chain.
Yeah.
So, and I feel yes, it's competition, but you know, more options and
Yeah.
and
Do
I
you,
feel like if each complex, like where the Hobby Lobby is, and then that area, and then of course, then you've got the Target Plaza. I feel, and then of course there's the creek that runs through there. So if that one looked more kind of like where it had the green space, but being able to walk between the two, and then how you showed the food trucks,
Mhm.
and that if that made it like a much bigger square than what is across 66, how it has all the complexes, how, you know, it's got the other Meyer, it's got Menards, and then it's got the little mini strip mall, or I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know, want to say mini strip mall, but that's all full with like Best Buy and some other anchor store. If there was continuity in between and making that one huge space, even if the green space was broader in between that, and feel like people could even walk between those two. It's like, oh, it's a food truck day, and people there with food trucks. It's like, oh, I got to go to Target, and they could park at Target, you know, park at Target parking lot, walk to the food trucks, or even walk across there.
Yeah.
That would look beautiful. So, because I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
so that's kind of what I would like to see.
yeah.
Um,
So what it sounds like I'm hearing you say, um, there's quite a few, or at least a handful of stores in the area in that corridor that you go to regularly, that, you know, kind of part of your routine, but
sure.
there's not much of a, are you saying, it kind of sounds like you're saying there's not much of a connection between the stores. Like it's a little bit of a, it's kind of spotty in terms of like Target's over there, Horrocks is up in the corner, and in between it's kind
Yeah.
of just open. Yeah. And there's not much of the green aspect to it.
Right. And I know there is, you know, there's the Mingus Creek and there's some other creeks. So I understand that even when they built the mall, when I was like a teenager, well, by the time it was built, I was a teenager. I mean, I worked in the mall
Yeah.
for 12 years or
Yeah.
anyway, but, and I knew that it's kind of almost like on a slant. If you, I mean, if you look at it's kind of on a slant. So Horrocks picked the drier end, I guess is what I want to say. And they bought that building. So and then Olive Garden's going in there, which, you know, people are excited about. And even if that mall was to go away from the mall aspect, there's
Yeah.
ways that can be utilized, you know, even if
Yeah.
they're bigger anchor stores, but if it flowed from even what Beckley Road splits both of those two, the left and the right complex, if something could be a little bit more, even like a pedestrian mall or, you know, over the top or something like that, I think that would be a big help.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. And it's worth, I pulled up the crash data that we were able to develop so far, and the brighter colors are more severe crashes, but you can see that kind of your point, like the Riverside area,
Mm-hmm.
there's just a big cluster of them. Mingus Creek and Beckley, and then Capitol obviously has a ton
Yeah.
along the whole area. So I will say, as far as traffic, we're definitely going to be part of this study, and the city actually has a consultant that's going to be working specifically on traffic too on this area, because we know that it's a super challenge, you know. So there's going to
Yes.
be some changes in the works, and getting some feedback on potential changes to this area as far as the traffic and the flow, like you were mentioning. So just something to keep in
And I
mind.
know that other people will probably bring this up, you know, the east side of 66 is Emmett Township, and those lights have never coincided between, if you go east to west, it doesn't matter. You may get two cars through going straight. It's never worked. And now it's even worse that more people are like going to Horrocks that way because that's, the traffic and that. And I understand the timing of the lights, it's like the city can do all they want, but
Yeah.
So I know other people will bring that up, but, and I hope eventually that will kind of lead that change to that with this project that you're doing. But I'm definitely excited that this is getting some attention, and I'm glad the city is, taking this, because while I know that downtown Battle Creek is very important, I'm very excited on the progress that's happening there. Beckley Road's never going to go away, and we just have to, keep in mind that both are needed in the community. So
Thank you. It's really helpful.
thank you.
The one other thing that's kind of worth mentioning, if you all can see the screen, you can see where the creek stops at Beckley and it starts up here on 94. Historically, the creek would have ran right through where the old Sears would be. So the creek, for whatever hundreds of years before the mall, went right through here, and then as part of the development of this in the late 70s, early 80s, they rerouted the creek around the mall site. And that's, basically the reason why there are some flooding issues over there and some challenges, and that a lot of that has to do with it. So just some additional context for everybody. Based on Diane's, comments or others, things that you've heard, what other ideas or thoughts do people have? I'll go back to this slide here about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. What are some other things that people have in mind?
Can I speak, Becky Holmgren?
Yes, please.
Becky?
Okay, so I have a couple different issues, concerns perhaps. The traffic is very bad. I don't think especially near what is it, Steak and Shake and Walgreens, that light that's such a short distance from M66 to that road, which I think is 6 Mile or something like that. It's very crowded there almost all the time. So I think maybe the lighting and stuff needs to be rethought, maybe even moved, because that's always been kind of a place where things get stuck, so to speak. Other than that, I agree with Diane. There should be a lot more green space. Perhaps widening the areas next to the little creek so that there's more areas where people could maybe sit or have a picnic, or, there's a bench there or whatever the case may be. More access to walking. I agree with that. Walking, biking. There should be, I don't want to call it a sidewalk. It needs to be something more like a trail type thing. So it's wider and people can get around. I don't know about crossing the street. I certainly would not want to attempt that on Beckley Road. That is just a terrible place to cross the street on foot.
Yep. Yeah, I was joking that you would need to be like a professional, like a college athlete or something to feel comfortable going across those streets and to sprint across them during the lights,
Yes. And there's no crosswalks. There's no, and I suppose you could build pedestrian bridges, but that doesn't help anybody who might have mobility issues. So they would not be able to get across anyway. My other thing is about the mall. I've been reading different articles about other people doing things with their malls, because all malls are kind of going the way of the dodo. And I had an interesting one where they had their entire mall was reinvented as a variety of thrift stores. People who basically recycle and reuse things, and then they sell them in these stores. And it worked very well because very near it was an actual recycling plant.
Hmm.
So they would be able to go right from their mall to recycling plant, pick up their pallets or furniture, whatever the case may be. It was close by. They've got, I don't know if there's a monetary thing where they'd have to buy it from the recycling place, or the recycling's like, yeah, take what you want type of thing. And that necessarily wouldn't work out there because I don't know if we'd want a recycling plant that close to where people,
Yeah.
I don't know that much about recycling plants, how smelly they are, or
Yep.
things like that. We don't want them near our watershed. We have a lot of those.
Mhm.
The other thing, and I agree with Diane, unfortunately, a lot of people around here go to mostly chain restaurants and chain stores. I'm not one of those. I like to go local, and I usually do. Sometimes I have to go to a chain store just to get what I need, but for the most part, I try to stay with local people because it's better for our economy. More money stays in our economy with a local vendor than with a chain store or a restaurant.
Becky,
And
are you, do you live near there or live in Battle Creek, or are you just typically, is that more like a
I have
regular spot
lived
for
in
you to
Battle
visit?
Creek my whole life.
Yeah,
I've lived in all parts of the city. Currently, I live out in Penfield, but I go out to the mall. I work downtown,
okay,
and I go out to the Beckley Road corridor. I don't shop a lot because I'm single and I just don't need a lot.
Mhm.
And I'm older and I'm trying to get rid of the crap I've gathered over the years. So I'm trying not to bring in more. But I go out there fairly frequently. I go to Horrocks and Sam's and occasionally Meijer, Walmart. So I frequent many of the stores out there
Yeah.
during the course of a year. But I don't go regularly because I don't live out there.
Okay. What's your, since you work downtown, like, what do you, I don't know, it's interesting, like, to Jim's initial talk about, like, citing, what we want and how things are prioritized. Do you have an opinion on that in terms of, like, downtown versus the Beckley Road area? And
Yes,
yeah,
yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I have opinion on pretty much everything. People will tell
oh,
me.
good.
Uh, I happen to have worked for one of the gentlemen who is working with the city, and he has a little, I can't remember what it's called, Whitewater, something or other, for the so-called Cement River downtown here to bring it back to its natural thing. The plan is to move Dickman Road, create more green space on both sides of the river, get rid of the cement, put back the boulders or whatever. They have a big plan. And take some land on both sides of the river to do this with. This, for me, is a perfect time. There's nobody there's nobody from M66 all the way down to where the car dealerships start on either side of the river. Because the what was it called? Graphic packaging is gone. Purina is still there. Somebody did buy that building, and part of the plan is to take some of their land next to the river. I don't know how they would like that. Kmart's gone, Horrocks is gone. The only thing there is a gas station, and I'm sure we could work something out to move them. So they would move Dickman Road to the, let's see, is that north? No. Yeah,
So
it's the north. To the north, to create this more space for
so
the river.
the green space is a big, kind of like green space for Beckley and downtown is something that you're really pushing or in favor of.
I am. I think green space, number one, my personal opinion is we live in the most beautiful state in the union. I've been to many states and they all have their beauty, and I may be just prejudiced. I will admit that. But Michigan is absolutely awesome
Mhm.
for beauty. We have rivers, we have lakes, we have hills, we have all kinds of green things that grow. We have the 4 seasons, so we get a little smattering of whatever nature wants to throw at us, sometimes all in one day, but you can't control that. And I think it's very sad that we don't take advantage of that in our society in general. We forget that it's important to stop for a moment and smell the grass or the
Yeah.
weeds or whatever's growing. We cut things down. We take the middle of the highways. This is another thing I have. We mow this all the time. Why don't we just throw a bunch of wild stuff out there and let it grow? Why are we mowing it?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I get why you mow along the edge to keep it off the cement and keep it from breaking up the cement. I understand that. So a little slash of mowing is fine.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, just let it go.
Right.
It's cheaper. I'm very frugal. I like cheap.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Let it, I'm trying to take over or let some of my lawn get converted into flowers. So
Yes,
little by
I did
little.
that. It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's very wonderful. Oh, one other thing I
Yeah.
think the city in general needs is we have a big lack of affordable housing. Every time I see the city give big money to big places, not that that's a bad thing, but for example, the Milton, it was my understanding that there would be some affordable housing. That is so far not materialized. We have, we're not, we're not a really rich city. We don't have a lot of big money people who live here. There are some, and they do good things. But there's a lot of poor people and they get forgotten, or the homeless. I hear people complain. I work downtown here. I work downtown Kalamazoo. I worked in Washington Square in Kalamazoo. There's a lot of homeless in those places.
Yeah.
And I have never, ever had a problem. I have been approached. They want money or, whatever the case may be. But I've never felt afraid or in danger, even though some of them are quite different.
Right. Right.
So and we have the Haven does a wonderful job down here. But they need more. They need more mental health. They need more regular health. I've read other things where, and I don't have the kind of money it takes to do that kind of stuff, nor the influence
Right.
to do it either. But we have a lot of empty school buildings. Perhaps we could do something with those, create a little studio apartments for them, something to
Yeah.
get them in a place. If it's a big enough school building, which most of them are, we could actually combine mental health and maybe a little clinic in there for them. Perhaps a little store where they could actually work there, be with
Yeah.
other people that understand where they are and where they're coming from. So
Right.
there's a lot of information out there on the internet. I love the internet. And there's a lot of places doing similar things. And I wouldn't mind seeing our city sort of go that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that feedback. That's really helpful. And I do think housing is definitely, there's a housing crisis, and especially for affordable and for low income housing,
Yes.
people need more places to live that are affordable to them. So something that we're looking at for sure with this. So thank you for that feedback.
You're welcome.
Other folks on the call who, other things that are coming to mind, and what do you have on your mind? Open hours, related to the corridor.
Well, Eric, do you mind if I pose the question to the group? We talked about pedestrians along the corridor. Just anecdotally, do people see a lot of people out and about walking along Beckley or trying to get across the road? Is it a high pedestrian area?
I
No.
could,
I mean, I can speak because I drive it every day. there is decent amount of traffic walkers because, it's on the bus line. And I've seen some trying to cross there, from say a Hobby Lobby to get across the way, because like they want to go say to Qdoba or even up to Horrocks. I mean, I fear for their safety. And a lot of times I see, because there's so many apartment complexes and stuff, that some of them are even just like on their morning run, down on the south side there of Beckley, in between like Culver's and to Hobby Lobby. So they're not shopping in that morning, but I mean, I'm there once a day in various times of the day, and I see somebody walking on one side of the road, at least every trip. So there is, I mean, I think there would be more
Mhm.
if there were, a little bit, safer with like, traffic flow or something in that, but
Crosswalks and yeah.
or cross something, yes, because I don't see too many bicyclists, but I do see a lot of walkers. No
Okay.
matter the time, no matter the time of year, because it is the bus line, because it is part of the bus line. So
Okay. Thanks for that, Diane.
yes,
I agree with Diane. I have seen, even though I'm out there infrequently, I would say 75% of the time I see at least a couple of people walking somewhere along that corridor. They're either crossing M66 or maybe they're walking down by one of the shopping areas. So I do see quite a few people on the road that are walking.
Great.
Yeah, thanks for that, James. Yeah, any other comments or ideas that are coming to mind as we discuss this a little bit further?
So maybe one of the opportunities here, and I think both the ladies have brought it up, the traffic out there and improving the area for walkability, because right now, if you want to cross Beckley or get across 66 to be on the other side for the other shopping, opportunities, I mean, you're taking your life in your own hands. There's protected crosswalks here, where, and there, but even with that, it's, a very large stretch to cross. I mean, you mentioned, Eric, you guys are out of Grand Rapids. I mean, 28th Street, I'm sure. Beckley right now is a mini 28th Street. It doesn't have the development on it to the degree that 28th Street has in Grand Rapids, but it's getting there. And the traffic is, pretty aggressive because it comes off the highway and all that. So yeah, you've got a lot of opportunities for people and vehicles to not be in good places with each other. That might be an opportunity for them to look at and do some intentional planning of making it more walkable and safer, not only for the pedestrian, but also for the vehicular traffic that's out there, because right now it's super congested, and the more you develop, the more people want to go and do. So yeah, we're all tied to cars. Very few of us, enjoy the concept of walk. So yeah, that might be an opportunity.
Could I interject real quick here? Perhaps we should think about some roundabouts at some of the street crossings.
Yep.
Slow
Yeah.
everybody down, give them a place to cross.
Yep, that is a good point for sure.
So just an interjection on the roundabout. They're designed for the traffic of vehicle, not human traffic. And those things are notorious, notorious for people just, hey, it's a free-for-all spinning wheel. And in Kalamazoo, there's right there on Sprinkle where they put that roundabout. Can't tell you how many times we've been through that roundabout, and people just, hey, forget the courtesy of who's where and when. They just cruise through vehicularly, and no, roundabouts, not a fan.
No.
I agree with you in a way, James, but I have seen some modified ones that were created to include pedestrians in them. one of them, actually, the city of Battle Creek already was going to put one down by the hospital on Emmett and North Avenue, which fell through. But I don't really think it quite needed there anyway. But the point is, it was a modified roundabout that included spaces for people to cross and wait if they needed to. And with Beckley being so good, we could actually maybe put a little piece of green space right in the middle. I don't know if that's a very good idea or not, but what the heck? We're
No.
what do they call that? Brainstorming.
Exactly. Yep. I
But yeah,
see it. I think it's,
sometimes, I'm sorry, sometimes with the roundabouts, like the fountain in Marshall, sometimes that's just a test to see how fast you can go around it. So I agree with James in a way. Some people do use them as little race courses, I think.
yep. I think I saw someone on the phone. Was someone on the phone trying to chime in? Maybe not. Well, any other folks? I see a handful of other folks on the call. Are there any other thoughts that are coming to mind as we're thinking about, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats? Open to hearing from some new folks too.
Um, If not, I guess if I could pose another question, looking at the trail, kind of to the south of Beckley Road, is that a feature that people have used in the past? Um, is it something that there are a lot of apartments nearby? And Diane, I think you mentioned people out using it on their morning run. Um,
Yeah, so about 25 years or so ago, I used to live in two different apartments there on Southwest Capitol, and we would rollerblade. This is how long ago it was, rollerblade from that area through that trail behind there, and then we would kind of in that, because that was the only area we could do anything like that without having to drive somewhere. Occasionally I see more in the warmer weather, because I'll cut through between that little by there past the Taco Bell to go to Target or back and forth, because I go out at the light there, because I don't like turning left out of just like leaving Target, because I'd never get out. So I always go to the light. So that's the way I go. I come through the light so I can turn left at the light, or anyway. And it's probably not used as much as it used to. But if it was built up a little bit better, I know I want to say, then like once it's dark. So it's, there's not like a lighted path or something, like that. So I think a lot of kids, use it more so than like, families walking with strollers or anything like that. But I do see sometimes that the apartment complex there that's behind the ABC warehouse, that's like the newer one. I see a lot of people with families just walking from there to go to Target or to go to Taco Bell. They're not necessarily using that trail, because that trail kind of leads more on this behind, like coming out, like where you would go like to Glen Cross and that kind of area. And again, that's another little busy area there. There's not much there's not a crosswalk or anything like that. So anybody that kind of lives at the Oak Brook, or what used to be Oak Brook, sorry, the Green Tree Apartments and Willow Creek and stuff, I'll see them just really walking down, like maybe to Panero or to the Shell station or something like that, not really using the trail as much anymore. And I think it's just because it feels so secluded.
Mhm.
So, but it's neat behind there. It's I just don't think it's promoted. So
Okay. do you think is it like primarily like you mentioned secluded? Is it kind of like a safety concern or is it just lack of
Well, I
light?
mean, maybe not necessarily. I mean, I don't know. And I mean, like I said, right now, there's not as, I mean, yeah, we're having some, tick of warmer weather. Um, but if I'm passing by there like, 5 o'clock in the winter, I'm not, I don't see anybody, but at 6 o'clock in the summertime, yeah, there's people that are kind of walking in that area. But after dark, it's dark through there. It's kind of overgrown, I mean, um, and there could be that. I mean, that would be something if you did a survey or if you did a public, forum when you say you're going to do that, that would be something that would be, something to highlight just to see if even younger people that, know that that's even there that have like that maybe live in that area. And that could be because there's not really a lot of signage for that anymore. It is part of the linear trail, but I don't see any, signage for anything like that either. Especially from the end of Southwest Capitol, like where you could actually enter in from it.
Yeah. Does that linear trail continue on in other parts of the city?
Yeah,
Or is it-
yep, through downtown Battle Creek, through to Kellogg Community College, to like around even closer to the Urbandale area.
Mhm.
And I've walked various parts of that throughout the years and I've never felt unsafe. I just feel it's a lot more wide open in certain areas and in that aspect. So
But this area is kind of, is there a gap, like this trail by Mingus Brook kind of stops for a little bit, right? And then it
yeah,
picks
because
up.
I mean, if you just came out right there by Taco Bell,
Yeah,
then there's really no other way where you would go unless you just decide you're gonna walk down Riverside or or something like that. So it doesn't pick back up again really until downtown Battle Creek. So it's kind of like the North Country Trail. The North Country Trail, goes through downtown Battle Creek, through Emmett Township, it's that, but and from the east, from the east to north, really. But there's gaps with that too, it's not part of the Beckley area, but it would be nice if there was that continuation,
Yeah.
whether it be, through somewhere through Riverside through to get to downtown Battle Creek more, more safely. And you'll hear other people say, well, I wish there was a bike lane to do the same thing. So it's kind of both of that.
Can I interject for a moment?
Yeah.
On the trail issue, the trails, there are several. Actually, there's a larger plan for them all to eventually interconnect. It takes time and money, so it's been a while since they've done any of the new trail, but they actually ultimately connect to all trails, not only in Michigan, but through the United States.
Wow.
So there's a plan for this whole trail system to be eventually linked, as long as we stay, diligent about doing it.
Okay.
So that's also an option, and I'm sure the city has maps and stuff on it. And I know there's a nonprofit that deals with it here in the city and in the state, and they have lots of information. I can't remember right offhand what they're called, but it's a really nice system. And
That's
it
helpful.
is good for bikes and people.
That's great. Yeah, that's helpful to know because we did see that when we were looking at kind of the future land use map for the city and what the future ideas were. And they do it is in the plans to try to have that trail connect. But when I was there, the last couple of times I visited the corridor, it was like, okay, I don't think it's quite completed yet. And I wasn't sure if there was hidden trails I didn't know about, or if it really is just kind of that initial strip and we need to figure out how we can keep getting it going and connected to downtown. That would be awesome.
Yeah, they've been working on those trails for decades.
Yeah.
They add new, I think the most recent one was out in Emmett Township with Kimball Pines and, there's another little park out there. Can't remember the name of it right offhand.
Bridge Park.
and they connected them.
You must be thinking about the art preserve.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Hi, I'd like to say something.
Absolutely. Is this Elizabeth?
Yes, it is. I've
Hello.
lived in Battle Creek on the south, uh, as the crow flies, I'm just over the bridge, the Capitol Bridge.
Okay.
And so one of the opportunities I see is for the electrical vehicle charging stations, especially to capture people who are traveling on 94 and even 69, of a place to charge their vehicles and also have a place to hang out in. When I've traveled, often I've seen, at grocery stores and in shopping areas, but I don't think there is any EV charging stations south of town.
That's a great point. Let me zoom in on the map here and see.
There is one at the Beckley Meyer parking lot.
There
Yeah.
is?
The B Drive North parking lot.
Yes,
Meyer.
the Tesla
Okay.
charging station.
Yeah, but they work for all EVs.
Well, yes, I understand. I'm just saying that's the name on it, branded by Tesla. That's all.
Right.
Okay.
So
And
Elizabeth, you're
so-
thinking kind of in this, basically
Right, it's
somewhere
not
off the exit.
right. And one of the things that I've always seen, it's like, why do I want to go to a grocery store if I'm passing through necessarily? It's just grab something. But if I wanted to like sit down and have, yeah, I'm not a coffee drinker, but like these coffee shops, bakery shops, we on Columbia on the other side, we have a little bakery in a seasonal ice cream shop. I think we could use something like that in the Beckley quarter. Since I live on the other side of the Capitol Ave Bridge, I would love to walk to the library. I would love to walk to Horrocks, but on my side where I live, there aren't sidewalks
Okay.
and a dangerous curve.
Yeah.
So it gets a little dicey because I'm a walker. One of the things that I learned recently in the city of Marshall, I guess people complain that there isn't enough parking, and the city manager said we don't have a parking problem, we have a walking problem. That means people expect to be closer to their destination than is feasibly allowed, but the walking is not far. So I'm not sure that that mentality would not translate to Battle Creek because I find people don't want to walk.
Mhm.
And that's why strip malls are much more convenient, is because you just go to that shop that you're looking for, not having to traverse through an enclosed area. And having not been raised and a lifelong resident of the Midwest, I grew up in New England and Massachusetts. I just find it funny when people say, we have traffic in Battle Creek. I just have to chuckle because you go to Chicago, Detroit, even Grand Rapids, right? Battle Creek has no traffic problems to me, and it's not big enough. And I think that said, the pandemic has, I think it's been proven to have people travel at a faster speed than pre-pandemic. And that, safety on the highway, the speeds have gone, much faster. And I think that's also gone into the, our actual, what do you call it, roads in,
Mhm.
our cities. People are more inclined to go through yellow lights, or more inclined to actually go through red lights.
Mhm.
And so as a pedestrian, I would love to be able to walk. My husband is a bicyclist, for pleasure and also for commuting. And it would be wonderful to have a safe bike area where you could stop and have, whether it's like at the cafe bit, I guess. And Horrocks is kind of picking, not for cyclists necessarily, but Horrocks is having people come to Battle Creek for Horrocks. I have heard people come from Kalamazoo to come to Horrocks. They're coming from Albion to Horrocks, much more so than they ever did when Horrocks was downtown. So I think if we captured the energy of people coming to Battle Creek for Horrocks, then maybe we can promote local businesses to open and make it more possible for people to get there by different forms of transportation.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, thank you. You said you live on the northern side of this
I
bridge?
live on the other side of Capitol, where the BP is. There's a Knapp Drive,
Yeah,
and in through those neighborhoods, so there
Okay.
are no sidewalks. And
Okay.
on that turn from Knapp to South Mingus is quite dangerous because the road can originally South Mingus went where the highway is now. So the structure of the road, just like the brook got changed, well, the road got changed, I guess, way back when the highway system was going in.
Okay.
So cyclists, when they're traveling from like downtown, they will go on from Capitol to West Mingus to South Mingus to Watkins Road, and then go out into the country to ride their bicycles. And I know there's like bike groups that travel. And again, you don't want to be on that Beckley corridor if at all possible, because Capitol is actually safer.
Mhm. Mhm. So I guess kind of just to validate or reiterate what it sounds like I hear you saying, one of the things, starting with the EVs, um, potentially setting up an EV charging station and making this a little bit of a destination for folks to, if they're going to stop and charge their vehicles, have a little bit of amenities available to keep people engaged and hanging out and spending a little bit of money in the area before they get their EVs charged up. So that sounds like one thing that you're thinking about.
Correct.
And then the other thing sounds like really accessibility for people that aren't using cars. So feeling comfortable to be on foot in this area, get across the bridge on foot or using bikes, like the the walking infrastructure and the biking infrastructure it could be improved, it sounds like.
Definitely. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Kind of another question similar to this, and just talking about this area, Capitol and 94. And it sounds like, Dan, you kind of work near this area too. What are, have
I
you guys,
work actually by the Red Lobster, like kitty corner from Red Lobster. That's where I work.
okay. What's the feeling about the hotels that are in this area?
So, well, there's a few in that area that are probably what the cool kids would say sketch. But they are pretty well within their own right. I mean, there's not a lot of trouble, let's say. Say like, I'm just gonna throw that name out there, like the Knights Inn. They have kind of just like regular people that stay there. But that also, some of those hotel guests, whether they're just passing through for the night or whichever, that's a good point about the EV, because there are, like, say, the ones there a little bit further down on Beckley. That would be something that would be great, that they could charge their vehicles. So even if there's the walkability from those hotels that float a little bit better, even if they just want to walk to Culver's and then go back to their hotel, it's it's hard to cross. It is hard to cross depending on the time of day that they want to do that. Even those that get off the bus line there at the corner of Southwest Capitol and Beckley, they want to cross the street to get to Panera or to Sweetwater's, or even to come down our way. I mean, thankfully, our office has a bus stop right at our office, and then there's some doctors' offices across the way. But if they wanted to walk elsewhere, it's concerning that lacks that whole, even if somebody wants to ride their bicycle, it's concerning that walkability is lacking in that area.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see that, because we have younger clientele. I'm in the staffing world, the recruiting world, that I feel if we could place them, if they could, work somewhere that they could walk to,
Right.
so, or even use the bicycle. I mean, obviously it's the elements, but our winters haven't been horrible here lately. So
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful to know.
So
How
Eric,
many, yeah,
on your question about the hotels,
yeah,
some of the hotels in that area definitely would do well if they were basically just removed, because there's some that they're not only sketchy, they're known hotspots. The police have been there more times than is, really necessary, but unfortunately it's the type of clientele and the activity that how these hotels have allowed to, crop up in there. So this might be an opportunity to clean up some of that territory and, make it a little bit more presentable.
yeah, thank you for, yeah, thanks for that. I had another question. I don't know, James, if you have any other ones that are coming to mind, but one question I had was if folks who are more familiar with the southern side of Beckley Road, where there's a little bit more housing and apartments, and then obviously the library, which is over there. Is that I guess what are people's impressions of this area on the southern side? Are there any specific like strengths that about this area, or weaknesses? But I guess tell me a little bit more about like if we get out of the strip mall commercial area, like what's going on down here?
So I lived in Glen Valley right when they first built, and I just was back there recently, and I was like, wow, that's really grown. And that's a safe area. All that area is relative, is safe and grown up in the last 25 years. Each of those complexes have added on that Glen Cross there, the divide, with all of that. And now there is going to be there's a hospice building there, but also the Bronson behavioral health facility is set to open, and that's going to create a lot more traffic in that area. I mean, it's going to be an outpatient and inpatient facility, and that's going to add to some additional workers for people that want to lunch or shop within the area as well.
Sorry, Diane, is that down here by where the trail ends, or where is that?
No, it would be kind of like where the 66 is, kind of like where that Clara Redwood Apartments.
Yeah.
That's that facility right there that's not labeled.
Okay.
So, and I sometimes will cut through Glen Cross, so then I can not have to get, not cross over 66, but I'll turn there. So if I'm going to, say Meyer that way, well, all of those apartments there along there are relatively are safe. They're well kept. Some of them are low income housing, but a lot of them are not. So that's the area where I was saying that would be nice if there was a better flow even to walk from that way
Yeah.
through that to say get to Target, but like where the library is. And then there's a storage unit there, and then there's a racquetball or a health facility and stuff like that. So that road sometimes ends up being what they would call somebody cutting across or cutting out of there, but trying to turn left out of there to head west is horrible. I used to, work out at that, and my son, was used that library quite a bit. He will just, when he was learning to drive, he just would go back down to Glen Cross Road, turn right to turn right to turn left. You know what I mean? Kind of go around that way just because it's horrible to trying to get out of there.
Well,
so that's where, like the flow of traffic, just that, it's like 40 through there. People do 45, especially if they're trying to make the light there at Riverside and Beckley.
well, yeah, and to that note, just a quick mention, if everybody takes a look at the roads that are going east and west across 66 and 194, there's literally one, and it's Beckley.
Right.
So,
that's
that's a big issue of why it's so hard, why the traffic is such a challenge over there.
Oh, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to a roundabout there, especially at the Riverside and Beckley. I mean, yes, I know it's a thing. It's because nobody likes change because roundabouts are newer. But like I said, I grew up in the area. Marshall's never had a problem with the roundabout, and that's the most beautiful roundabout in Michigan. But it's just like four-way stops. People just need to learn what to do, and people forget about four-way stops because we have so many less of them than when they learn to drive, and that might be a thing to present as well, or something. It's just how you sell it. I mean, we are in a town that's like, oh my God, please no more roundabouts. Well, we don't have one in Battle Creek anyway.
Right.
So.
Right.
Makes sense.
Other comments on this area down here, either about the apartments or just impressions of the apartments and housing over there, but also the medical facilities. I'm curious to hear people's experience, or if you're using the medical facilities down here quite a bit, or know people that are, because it feels like at first impressions on our end is that there's a lot of medical buildings and that sort of thing in this area too.
That's where all of and somewhere along that, I use this area here where it says, across from where it says Battle Creek Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery. I have a doctor there, and then I also use the lab facilities at what they call the Borges Ascension Park there. A couple times a year. And there's an dermatology around there somewhere that is pretty new, that's on the west side of Capitol. My husband uses that one.
Okay.
And then I use the dermatology that's across from my area, that's behind Red Lobster, or right next to Red Lobster, that complex. There's doctor's offices down there behind that.
Okay.
So down here.
You're down there. You're like a Beckley corridor super user.
I am.
You work there, you shop there, you got your doctors there. That's awesome.
I mean, I also, but I eat downtown, I drink downtown, because there's favorites down there that's been there, and and stuff. So but I also, for where I live, I will go to the Columbia Mire just to avoid, because it's just straight down Helmer, but I live off of Beckley. I live off the west side of Beckley, past south of 94. So
no, that's great. I think I love that the initial comment by Jim at the beginning of this to talk about Beckley and downtown. And I think we want to be really, Beckley, and I mean, downtown Battle Creek there's only one downtown Battle Creek, and there's thousands of targets across the country. So there's a way that we can do this where I think the city makes Battle Creek or the Beckley Road corridor kind of complementary to what Battle Creek's downtown is, you know, and we can try to be complementary rather than try to compete with downtown, you know, and because we don't want the city to be cannibalizing itself and just have two competing areas, but
Right.
I think there's ways to make it happen where we can strike a balance. So I think that's really helpful to know.
Well, and I'm excited for that, because I've been a kid, a teenager, a young mom, you know, and a working adult all through different areas throughout the Battle Creek area.
Mhm.
And I'm one that promotes local, I mean, in all facets. So,
Yeah.
with that, if I just felt like, you know, it's what's been lacking over the years is just the advertising between the two.
Mhm.
You know, about downtown, right? So, and I'm excited, and I know I'm part of some, you know, some communication with what's happening downtown Battle Creek. And I know this is about Beckley, so that's why I didn't spotlight that. But they are working on that continuity to,
Yeah.
that, but also tourism, just the things that we have here in the summertime, like the Field of Play and the baseball games, a lot of the touring travel that comes in, they're downtown Battle Creek, but they stay along the Beckley corridor. And
Mhm.
while people, you know, they may not get done downtown, you know, until 9 o'clock, well, the restaurants are full, or so they want to just go back to their hotel, and then that's why they grab a bite at like
Yeah. Yeah.
um Culver's or something like that, because they can take it and they go back to the room. So it fits both of those profiles. So that's the way it's kind of been. So
Yeah. Thanks for that note.
May I add something else that MDOT is talking about taking M66 going, or actually what we call the penetrator. Are you familiar with that term? The I-96 going
94
into
or
downtown.
96. Yeah.
Yeah, and making it into a boulevard.
Mhm.
So that has to be taken into consideration in terms of the future uses, because M6 or that I-96 is going to be slowed down. I have a feeling that will happen regardless, just because of costs. Bridges are much more expensive to rebuild than to reconfiguring the roadway. So I'm sure that will have an influence on the Beckley corridor, as well as future, hopefully, housing and opening up the communities that currently are blocked by the highway.
Yeah.
agreed.
Yep. That's a great point. Yeah. I'm going to show you this traffic volume just to kind of give you a sense of what's going on the corridor. But it's pretty interesting because on average, Beckley Road only gets a couple thousand more cars than Capitol. So
Right.
it really isn't that Beckley Road is like, it's not like it, in Beckley Road, the way it is designed now could actually handle a lot more traffic. But the challenge is, to everybody's point, the lighting, timing the
Yes.
lights, but also the fact that half the people driving on this road are trying to get through, and the other half are trying to make left and right hand turns. And when you have two groups of people trying to do the same different things on the same road, that's going to present a lot of challenges. So I think that's another thing just to kind of have in the back of people's minds about what some of the challenges are regarding, okay, are we using Beckley Road to travel to the, you know, just to try to get east, or are we actually using it because we're trying to get to all these shops? And that's where some of the disconnect is. So.
And Jim made the point, the comparison to 28th Street in Grand Rapids, I think is pretty accurate. Just because there is a lot of vehicle traffic doing, egress, ingress into different parcels. So I mean it is a challenge because a lot of people are trying to get through, but others are trying to turn and get onto the road. So yeah, traffic management is definitely a concern.
So kind of to that point, one of the things, and so we have that challenge, but then we also are hearing from you all and from others that pedestrian safety is a challenge. So we could have a solution or a part of a solution where we're making it a little bit more pedestrian friendly. And that way people aren't staying in their car just to go a quarter block to get to the next street. They're able to just park once and walk around and hit some of these buildings and stops that they want to go to. So
Right.
all good things. So we're almost at time here. I really appreciate the discussion today. It's been really, I think some of it was enlightening. Some of it kind of validated some of the things we were getting our gut reactions to, and other things were just kind of things we hadn't thought about. So I'm really excited about this. And the feedback's been really helpful so far. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm definitely, I'll definitely want to be a part of this. And I'll try to get some other people. I was really surprised there was only 3 of us that actually had anything to say, because on social media, you would think that everybody has something to say, but nobody wants to say it publicly.
Okay.
And I'm a very positive person, and I don't mind change as long as it's for the right direction, positively. So I'm very happy, and I will probably be at all these in-person ones, and I'll be on this Zoom again. So
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I think Jessica and the city of Battle Creek are the ones to keep tabs on their social media.
right.
Because that's going to be, they do a great job of getting the word out for these events as we get them scheduled. But yeah, in April, just so everybody knows, this will be probably more of a public meeting with the city directly, where we give
Good.
kind of a overview presentation of the state of the corridor as it currently is.
That'd be great.
And that'll be kind of like when we transition into some more of this, like, okay, we got a good baseline understanding of where things are. Now let's really dive into like where we take things next, I guess, that's kind of the transition point. But
Yeah.
then as we keep going, we'll have 3 more of these virtual updates. We're going to have 3 community gatherings, which will be kind of bigger public events. And then we'll have 3 pop-ups where we'll be, I haven't confirmed the shops yet, but ideally, hopefully we do something at Horrocks. I would love to get in there, but
Yeah, definitely.
basically, yeah, it feels
Well,
like
that will be
that's a
great,
no-brainer.
because Horrocks, at any time you go now, has got such a huge footprint of people that
Yeah.
just are in there. That would be fantastic, because that's going to be a staple that's going to stay there.
Yeah.
Because they bought the building. So
Right.
absolutely, that's great.
Yeah. So, well, if anybody else has any questions or anything, feel free to let us know or contact the city. I don't think there's a way for me to. I thought there was a chat, but I wanted to put my email address in there.
I think I'm good until the next one. I mean,
Okay.
so I appreciate that, that this was even a public input for for the very, very beginning stage. So I think
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Awesome. Well,
And Eric, this is Jessica. We can put your email address if you'd like when we put the recording of this out. For everyone on the call, we are recording today so that we can share this with anyone who wasn't able to participate, and they can see what the conversation's been so far.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I'm fine with that. Sure.
cool. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again, and stay in touch and stay tuned for more exciting stuff to come.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
bye-bye.
Eric, this is Jessica. Can you stay on for a second for the Zoom?
Yeah.
Awesome. Just let everybody else get off.
Hey, Jessica, would you like me to hang on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.